Welcome back to Closing Bell. South Africa's Finance Minister Malusi Gigaba's maiden medium-term budget policy statement revealed a bleak state of public finances here in South Africa. The economic growth forecast was revised down to 0.7% from 1.3% for 2017. Joining me now is Sizwe Mbele. He's the Director of Strategy at Business Leadership South Africa. A very good afternoon to you, Sizwe. So we've had a lot of people, economists, political parties, everybody really weighing in on what we saw coming through yesterday on that medium-term budget policy statement. A lot of disappointment coming through. Is there somewhat of a silver lining? What did you make of that medium-term budget policy statement?
Yeah, I think the organized business share the same sentiments as everyone in South Africa, every caring South African for that matter. There's a lot of talk. If there's one thing that is accurate about what the finance minister mentioned is that we are in deep trouble. And for that, we need to put our hands together to make sure that at least we revive this economy. Sadly, the storyline has been the same. When Private Gordon mentioned and Gigaba Jonathan mentioned the question of organizational capacity with regard to SOEs, there was very few people who agreed with them because this was based on personality cards, frankly. So we still see that, especially in SOE, because the only thing that seems to be increasing there in what the minister mentioned is the debt servicing cost. And sadly, the writing is on the wall. We need to make sure that at least we capacitate the SOEs. That's the first thing, but we also provide the policy certainty. So the organized business is quite disappointed with regard to the stage where we find ourselves in, and therefore we call upon the government, specifically the public enterprise as well as the national treasury, to say they need to join business to make sure that at least we provide policy certainty and capacitate the SOEs, because they are the real threat to this economy.
Indeed, those SOEs, when we look at SAA getting another bailout, they've got a new board, the SAA as well as the SABC. Do you think that this new board can turn things around? There's talk about privatization. Is that the way to go? Or have we gone just way too far to turn this beast around?
Well, let's see, because he mentioned that there will be a new board at ExCom, and we welcome that. But the key issue here is that the board in its own cannot do much. So we need to see the individuals that are there in the board. Because you do know that with regard to corruption and state capture, people that were implicated there were sitting on procurement, people that were in contracting, and members of the board. So you cannot try to solve the problems with tried and tested solutions that never worked. That's the first thing. With regard to the danger for South Africa, business leadership feels that the greatest danger is with ESCOM, because that's where you see that the bailout, it's going there, and the guarantees that the government needs to put. The greatest danger is ESCOM. I listened today to the finance minister when he was trying to justify the continue holding on of SAA. He talks about that needs to protect the jobs. Well, look at that statement. Basically, it's saying that the staff there that they have is quite bloated. The government is moving to the very difficult period where they need to negotiate the wages of public services. If they are above inflation, there's another issue there. So SOE's bailout, whereby you look at how you're going to bail out selling telecoms. How can you sell an asset that is making money while financing the old habits? The Minister of Health and Education, those are the two ministries or departments that seems to be consuming a lot of money but will produce results that are so bad. Let me give an illustration when it comes to numbers. The average cost of the return on capital for a 1.2 trillion South African asset, it's about the cost of capital is about 8%, but the return has been about 3%, which means that there is an opportunity cost of over 5%. We'll take that 5% of 1.2 trillion, that's about 60 billion. There is a gap. So the capacity is the key here in terms of governance and making sure that there is no corruption. You root out corruption, you do something about it. There's a lot of talk and talk and talk.
Yeah,
There's oratory.
So you've painted somewhat of a scary picture of South Africa right now, where the writing's been on the wall for a very long time. But where are we headed? Because we've got that elective conference in December where leadership is going to be chosen by the ANC. Do you think that new leadership can turn things around? Could we fix things once the new leadership comes through? Or what's likely to happen?
Well, the business leadership South Africa feels that now it's time for the brave men and women of the ANC to raise their hands, the constitutionalists, so that when they vote, when they decide the future, they must know that, to borrow the American natives, the chief Seattle says that we did not inherit South Africa from our ancestors, shall we borrow it from our children. So they need to recognize that and make the right decision. So there's still an opportunity there. But people have been blaming business and say, what is it that it's doing? We are saying we are ready in terms of providing the organizational capacity. We are ready to make sure that there is coherence in terms of policy, and we are ready to provide advice and sound seminar contribution when it comes to practical things that we can do. Now we need to be sitting together around the table and say, where are the low-hanging fruit, so that we can actually provide solution for this country.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. That was Sizwe from Business Leadership South Africa.